like you lost another one.
Welcome back to The Father's Advocate. I'm your host, Attorney Ella Hughes. Last week, we took a break from discussing fathers' rights to discuss a topic that affects men more so than women, and that was the topic of statutory rape. This week, I want to go back to discussing fathers' rights, but with a twist, and that is from a mother's perspective. Before doing so, I want to be frank with you, be transparent, and speak my truth. So when we decided to do the Father's Advocate podcast and YouTube channel, I thought it was important to find out more about fathers' rights, but not necessarily from a legal perspective, but rather I wanted to find out what dads were saying, what they were experiencing. And so as part of my research, I went through a deep dive into social media and anything I can find about fathers' rights. I looked at tons and tons and tons of videos, social media posts, blogs, and comments. And I even looked at paternity court. And having looked at paternity court, those episodes were entertaining, but I saw at least 3 compilation of videos where there were men who had been declared to be the child's father. And then it was later determined through DNA that they were not the child's father. And to say the least, they were very, very hurt by what the mothers had done. Now, having looked at all these posts and blogs and comments and videos, I learned a whole lot. Some stuff I did not want to learn. And so to say the least, I was a bit disappointed and quite frankly, really pissed off. And the reason for that is because I've dedicated the vast majority of my career representing fathers. And if anyone that knows me or have listened to the first episode, that talk about myself being a woman and a single mother. And I had to be a single parent when my child was born. And I was a single parent her entire years as a minor. And I was also one of those mothers that went to court and asked the court for child support. And based on the comments that I saw from so many dads who bash women and bash the system, they would bash me. And I'll just tell you, when I was in college and law school, I did not have the financial means to be able to take my child to daycare. Yes. I didn't have the ability to pay for gas, pay for childcare, pay for her food, pay for rent, pay for gas to get me back to school. I didn't have those finances. So I had to get child support because dad on his own would not pay it. And so because I had this experience as a mother, to represent individuals who believe that I should not have asked the court for child support or what I did was wrong, creates a conflict internally. Now, I will say this. I have been blessed with great, great dads that despite what issue it was, they didn't come up with excuses. They didn't bash mom. They didn't point fingers. They rolled their sleeves up and said, I got to do what I need to do to get my child back with me or so that I can visit. And it didn't really matter what mom had done. Now, what I discovered, despite all of this, is that most of the comments that I saw that dads made was based out of a lot of pain, anger, and emotions. And my biggest question is whether or not it's justified. And I would say probably. But I also would say that the pain and emotions and the anger is based out of ignorance. And I know that this may upset a bunch of people. But please know that is not my intent. My intent is not to anger folks and it's not to offend anyone, but mostly to get to the basis and why we need to address this issue. And it is to move past that pain and to create resolutions. Because at the end of the day, you can be angry, you can be in a lot of pain, you can be mad, and you can think you're right, but is it going to get you closer to being with your child? And the answer is absolutely no. It may be the fuel to help you get to where you need to go, but it's not going to help you if you don't know what you're doing. Now, I will be fair and say that having looked at so many blogs and read so many comments and looked at tons and tons and tons of videos, There were at least 2 organizations that did not bash women or the court. Instead, what they did, they focused inward. They focused on improving and inspiring men to do better and considering their part in the drama that has created a breakdown in the family or the child-parent relationship. One of these organizations also have kind of like a school where the dads will attend and they will have to graduate after they've done so many, I don't know, hours or tests or exams or something like that. And I listen to these videos where these dads talk about their experience, like how life was before they got into the program and then how life was after they got into the program. Now, I won't disclose these organizations at this time because it is my hope and my desire that they will be guests on the Father's Advocate. But irrespective of this, what I have determined is that going forward, the Father's Advocate's mission will not only be to represent and advocate for fathers' rights, but also to heal broken families. Because at the end of the day, it really does not matter who is at fault. What really matters is you have an innocent child that was brought into this world because of 2 adults who now have a bunch of drama and can't get it together. And that child is the one that has been affected, not the parents. The other thing is that despite the anger, despite the pain, despite the emotions, it really doesn't matter. What is going to happen if all you do is have anger and you're pointing fingers? And I will tell you, some of this stuff that these dads were talking about, how they were upset with the women and they were upset with the mothers and they were upset with the court. Again, I believe it's based on ignorance. And I say that because there is nothing, absolutely nothing on the books when it comes to law that says that the system is in favor or favors mothers. And I know that for a fact because I do this day in and day out. I have represented fathers who the world have essentially thrown to the wolves and said, there's nothing I can do with you. In fact, I had a client who had a criminal record. He went to a law firm in downtown Atlanta, a big, huge firm, and they got tons and tons of partners. And because of his criminal record, they told him, there's nothing we can do. The best that we can hope to get for you is every other weekend. That's called standard visitation. And then he came to me after spending a lot of money at this law firm. And I represented him. And despite having to pay over $1,000 in child support and only being able to get every other weekend visitation, not only did I get this dad to not have to pay child support, but I also got him custody of his children, which is something that everyone said he could not get because 1, he was a father, and 2, he had a criminal record. So to say that the system favors women is completely incorrect. In fact, the Supreme Court actually outlawed disparate treatment of fathers, and particularly those fathers who had children born out of wedlock in the case of Stanley versus Illinois. And if you want to know more about that, we can discuss it. But as I said before, there is no such thing as the system favoring mothers. But what I will say is that if you're going to go to court and you're going to fight the system, you need to know how to fight. In my experience, women and mothers fight much differently than fathers. Not only do they fight differently, but they are willing to fight. My experience, fathers are not that often willing to fight. If you don't believe me, I have an exercise that I want you to consider. And after you had a chance to look at this exercise, digest it, and even answer the questions, then I want to hear back from you. This exercise is based on several cases I've had in my office, consultations I've had with fathers, and even just basic stuff that I've seen in the comments that dad have made. So here's the exercise. There's a child support order that requires dad to pay mom every single month. There is what's called an income deduction order that takes money out of dad's check every single month towards child support. Dad gets a new job, but he forgets to tell the employer to take money out of my check. In the meantime, mom says, here, dad, you take the child. I don't want to deal with him anymore. And the child now lives with dad. Several years later, Dad receives a letter in the mail from the Office of Child Support saying that Dad now owes $30,000 in child support arrears. Now, Dad is upset. The question to ask, should Dad be upset, and if so, why? The next question to ask, what should Dad have done before receiving the letter from child support? And the third question to ask is, what can Dad do now? I'll give you a hint. The answer to the first question, whether Dad should be upset, is no. Now, I bet you, I'm almost certain, many folks will say that Dad should be upset. And the answer is absolutely not. Now, if you can get the reason why no is the answer, then you're on your way to understanding why the system does not work for women only. I will come back in a couple of days and I will discuss the answer. Please leave me your comments. I want to know what you're saying, because in order for me to help dads and the communities and heal families, I need to know what folks are thinking. Hey fathers, I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I also hope you were inspired and you learned something new and helpful. As always, you're not in this alone. Don't stop fighting. Your children do need you. If you enjoyed the episode, or if it was helpful to you in any way, please consider following us wherever you listen to podcasts, or on YouTube, The Father's Advocate. Hit the like button, share this episode with other fathers, and subscribe. Also, feel free to leave us a comment or suggestion of topics you'd like us to explore. Please share your thoughts and participate in our online questionnaire. We would really like to know what you think. Lastly, we would like to honor fathers by hosting the first ever father-child athletic competition and father-daughter dance. If you'd like to attend, be a guest speaker, a sponsor, volunteer, or anything in between, please contact us at info@thefathersadvocate.com. See you next week for another episode. Until then, this is The Father's Advocate, Attorney Hughes.